In a recent video, I talked about how weather spawns might be coming back in Pokémon Winds and Pokémon Waves because it, well, just makes a lot of sense. That to me is a very positive thing, but needless to say, opinions did vary quite a lot. So hey, I'm not so a strainer, welcome back to the channel, and how could we fix that in order to make everyone happy? Let's get into it. When I talked about weather spawns, I did leave out a big negative thing regarding them. The issues with rarity and also the issue of time. If you weren't changing the switch's clock in order to manipulate the weather, which we can't really take into account as a feature as the game wasn't designed for that to be a thing, there was always a chance that getting the right weather was a huge problem and a very tedious task. Kinda like getting the right distortion in the Mega Dimensions DLC. And then you'd be faced with a limited time to find something that could be a 1% or a 2% spawn, like Drippy in the Lake of Outrage only in fog, overcast or thunderstorm weather in Sword and Shield. That is the issue with rarity and a little bit with time, but then comes actual time, real world time. Players have a limited time to play the game, meaning that finding the thing you want in that specific window of time becomes a more stressful situation that does nothing positive for the gameplay, and does go against Game Freak's modern philosophy. With Game Freak clearly trying to get the stressful gameplay away from the classic Pokémon series and leaving that more action-packed thing for the Legends series, I find it very unlikely that that will happen in Pokémon Winds and Pokémon Waves. But does that mean that we won't have any weather spawns? No, it just means that they will be different from Sword and Shields. There was a comment by Jerome Schmidt on that video I mentioned that talked about how weather manipulation needed to be part of the game itself in order for weather spawns to be good. He even suggested something like the Song of Storms from the Legend of Zelda series, or a legendary companion from the start like in Pokémon Scarlet and Pokémon Violet. Music having an effect in the overworld is not uncommon in Pokémon like the Poké-Flute or the flute in Sun and Moon, and I could certainly see flutes playing a role once more. I mean, they are very important in multiple Pokémon games. Check this video out to hear me talk about it if you want. And yes, the legendary companion did happen in Pokémon Scarlet and Violet, and thus is nothing unheard of in the franchise. And also, the mention of the Legend of Zelda series reminded me of the Wind Waker, a game where we use the wind to traverse the waves. And there we are able to manipulate the weather to help us get through obstacles or move faster through the seas. We even learn some of those songs from deities like Cyclos or even the god of winds Zephyros, so music and the legendaries from that universe. But again, I wouldn't like to see the same thing that happened with Koraidon and Miraidon happening again here. I don't want the legendaries with us from the beginning, not as our rides or something like that. And honestly, I don't think they would do it again so soon. So how could it be done? My theory is that weather manipulation will be achieved through the hotel that we're staying at. There is a huge antenna-like thing at the top of the hotel that I believe is not only able to receive information, but is also able to send out some kind of wave or another kind of energy that can influence the weather in the Gen 10 region, maybe even the energy related to this game's gimmick. So not really music, not really sound waves or musical waves, but some kind of wave. And then comes the legendary part, not as acting like a right Pokemon from the beginning, but since I believe these two Pikachu to be the legendary Pokemon in disguise, and they, in my opinion, are staying at the same hotel as us, well, it might very well be their energy that we use in order to affect the weather. Of course, this wouldn't happen from the beginning of the game, it shouldn't happen from the beginning of the game. We need some goals, some obstacles that we have to work in order to take down, something that we need to do in order to become either strong enough or at least reach certain milestones in order to become more powerful or simply have access to a new ability. But eventually, after reaching certain victories, well, we'll probably have their attention and they will start giving us hints that they are indeed the legendaries, even if we're not truly sure they are. But what about you? Would you like to see some sort of weather manipulation, or would you rather not see anything to do with weather spawns or any kind of weather thing in Pokémon Winds and Pokémon Waves? Let me know down below. And now, that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one. But before I go, I want to thank my YouTube members Good Old Deo, Dash Plays, and Attila Santo, and my Twitch subscribers and newbies here, the Dr. Joe, Teixeira23, Lazarix, and Odd Cypher for going that extra mile. Thank you so much for all of your support.